Hello everyone, today we're going to be looking at the Slab Mini from ArcadePCBs over on Etsy. Now they did send this out to me, but they gave me zero instructions on the video and all opinions are my own. So it comes inside of this box wrapped in a lot of bubble wrap and it has some clear sticky rubber feet that you can add to the bottom so it doesn't slip around. There's also no cable provided, so you'll have to provide your own USB-C cable. It has blue protective adhesive on the top, so you'll need to take that off, and here you can see that I've actually gotten art for it, which is an additional option you can pay for to have printed and cut out for you. On the back, there's a bit more adhesive you need to peel off, and you also have the option of adding more art to the bottom of it to make it more personal. So in all, you get the controller and some clear rubber feet. I will say the art print came out a little darker than I expected, and the alignment of the print on my menu buttons is also slightly off, but that could be entirely on me since I used a website called Photopea instead of actual Photoshop to create the art. Now that the controller is plugged in, let's go ahead and go over the features of this controller. So first off, we have RGB. Now this is not a default colorway, I added it in the web configurator, but we can go ahead and cycle through the default options by holding select, start, and then pressing the one punch button. So here we'll see a solid red color. And then here we have a breathing cycle of different colors. And here we have a more sporadic flow of the colors. And here we have a rainbow color. Now next up we have the input reader. Now on the PS5 version you will not have an input viewer, but on the GP2040CE version you will. So as I press my buttons, all of them show up nicely. And then here we can see our X input, which denotes which console we plug it into. So for PC it's X input, but for other consoles, when you're swapping it, you want to hold a different button when you're plugging it into the console. It will remember this, but if you swap them, you'll want to know these. So for PS3, you'll hold this button. For PS4 and PS5, this one. For the Nintendo Switch, this one. For PC, this one. And then for the Xbox One and Xbox Series S and X, you'll hold this one. Now keep in mind, for PlayStation and Xbox console support, you'll want to have an adapter plugged into the controller itself. So here on the board you can see this at the top for your adapters to be plugged into. Now for the PlayStation version board of this controller, you will not need any adapters, but for the GP2040CE one, you will. Next up we have our menu options with the select, start, home, L3, R3, and capture button. And we can see that it uses layered acrylic and the RGB shines through nicely. And these use LTC crystal similar reds, which are paired with Sino Arcade keycaps. The first notable thing is that even with the smaller size of this controller, it was actually really comfortable to play with it on my lap, and I didn't have problems with it slipping around or feeling too cramped, and it just feels really comfortable. A lot of smaller controllers have you fatigued or make your fingers hurt pretty quickly when you play with them on your lap, but I didn't have this issue with the Slab Mini, so it's great for both lap and table play. Another thing is, the buttons sound really nice to press, so I'm just more in tune with my inputs when playing. The controller's acrylic is thick and weighty enough when playing, so it doesn't have any issues with moving around too much, but it's still light enough to pick up and travel to go to locals with. When testing it for creaking, there isn't any unless you actually try and purposely do it, but even then it's minimal, so the controller feels really solid. The menu buttons also aren't annoying to press like on some other controllers, and I like how the select button is on the left since it's easier to reset training that way. Updates for the Slab products can be found in the link in the store page, and this build version is designed specifically for the controllers, so make sure you only use their files to update. For all of their controllers, you'll want to download the flash nuke file in order to remove any existing firmware on the controller. Additionally, you'll want to get the firmware for your specific controller, so for me I have the latest version, which is this one. Next up, you'll want to hold start, select, and up as you plug in your controller to your PC, or you can hold the boot cell button on the back. Now this opens up a new drive, and you'll want to drag over your flash nuke file, and once it loads back up, drag over the new firmware. When plugging in your controller, hold start and go to this URL and you'll be able to access the web configurator where you can make customizations to your controller. Now before anything, you'll want to go to configuration, data backup and restoration, and save a copy of your current configuration. That way if anything goes wrong, you can always load the file and restore to default settings. Now for PS5 play, make your way to the settings tab. You'll want to change your input mode to PS4 and make sure that is set to arcade stick instead of controller. Now this does seem to be the default option. I didn't check what it was before I updated it, but it does seem that arcade stick is the default option. With this option set up, you'll be able to plug adapters into the side of the controller's USB-A port to take use of PS Passthrough. Now you'll be able to play PS4 games, but on the PS5 you can only play fighting games. The recommended adapters are the Mayflash V1.1 and the PXN5, which can be bought for $30, or the Wingman FGC, which can be bought for $60. With this method, you will have no additional lag when playing on PlayStation, as it's only used for authentication. This will also work with some adapters for the Xbox One and Xbox Series S and X, so you'll have the opportunity for more console compatibility. So for the LEDs, I'm going to keep it really simple. Now let's go to the configuration tab, LED configuration, and now here we can change the brightness. So when I updated the controller, it was a lot brighter than it was when I first got it, and changing the brightness to 30 made it look like how it was when I first got it. Now to change the color of the LEDs, go to the configuration tab again, custom LED theme, enable it, and change the layout to stickless. So from here you can change the color to a non-changing solid color, as well as what it turns to when it is pressed, or you can set a gradient of multiple colors. You can also set a gradient for what it is when it is pressed. And these buttons up here don't light up, so just keep that in mind. Now here's an example of it with this configuration. Here the gradient goes from blue to pink, and when I press the right buttons they're green and the left ones turn red. Now you also have the option of changing the image that is on the little display screen. So if you go to the configuration tab, display, and here you can change it from the default Slab Mini logo and then press save. And if you want to change the duration, you can do so here. And if you want the image to always be on, then you can change the value to 0. Now for changing bindings, you'll go to the pin mappings tab, which is a little more advanced, but I don't see you making too many changes to this controller, except maybe some menu options like changing the start and select button positions. So if you want the start button to be on the left and the select one to be on the right, then you can just change this pin to S2 and this one to S1. So remember that at the bottom of each section there is a save button, so remember to be saving as you go ahead and make your changes, that way they actually apply to your controller. And then once you're done, hit the reboot button, hit controller, and you can close out the tab. If you want to buy the Slab Mini, you can find it over on Etsy from ArcadePCB store. These are made to order, so you'll need to wait some time to get yours shipped out, but their communication is top notch and their owner responds to questions really quickly, so if you ever have any issues, you can always expect great communication. They also have their larger sized Slab MX design for those who want to try out something a bit larger than the Mini. These controllers have good quality and aesthetically they look really nice, so be sure to check them out. I really like this controller overall. It's compact yet fairly thick, so it carries benefits of both a big and small controller with its weight and form factor. It's comfortable to play with on my lap despite it being on the smaller side, but also perfect for table play. I also really like their choice of button caps as I prefer their look to other keycaps. The buttons also feel and sound really nice, so it's just a very enjoyable experience to play on it. I'm not big on RGB, but I do like how they look on this controller as they shine nicely and have a bunch of customization options. Personalization with art that can be on both sides of the controller is also really nice to add as you're going to be winning fights on this thing. Adding your own art adds a nice aesthetic look, and I think this controller can be both your main driver as well as a good travel option, so it's something to keep your eye on. I hope this video helped you learn something new, and please consider subscribing. Thank you.